I see that you guys are enjoying interview preparation and the questions and answers from the actual interviews that did give jobs to our students. So I decided to share one more with you. Recently, one of our students did get a job offer, first QA job offer ever, and she is making more than $50 an hour right now. Here is a list of questions and my answers that she did receive during those 3 rounds of interview as far as I remember. But before we get into it, you gotta hit the big fat thumb up button below, subscribe to our channel, join our Instagram and Telegram communities, and let me quickly introduce myself. Good afternoon, QA engineers and those who are planning to become one soon. My name is Sergey Kromchenko. I'm a software QA engineer, lead manager, and a senior engineer manager of SDAT, but these days, I'm helping people like you to become a QA engineer or to improve your existing skills, as I'm a founder of Codify Bootcamp. Now, let's get started. First question, what drives you to work in this field? Well, it's a very simple behavioral question, but it can tell a lot about you and about your passion. Every one of you guys will have your own answer, but mine is very simple. What drives me to work in this field is passion. I do enjoy building new things. I do enjoy solving problems mainly. And whenever you're working as the QA automation engineer, number one, you are building a completely new world where you and your teammates set up the rules that everyone will be using in the future. And also, something will break from time to time, and you're gonna have to find out how to fix it. You're gonna have to find out how to improve things from time to time. And that is where joy comes to me, because I'm solving problems, I'm making things more efficient, I'm making things better, just like I do with my own life throughout my life. Second question, are you familiar with test scripts? Well, very easy general question, right? But I will double check, because sometimes people refer to test cases as test scripts, but majority of the time, test scripts are actual scripts in JavaScript, Python, Java, whatever language you prefer, which are part of the test automation framework, which are testing your application that you usually do manually. So I would double check on that, and most likely they will say, well, we're talking about test automation. So if they do, I would definitely say from my perspective that I'm very familiar with the test scripts, as I've been writing them for more than 8 years, I believe. I've been writing them in the JavaScript, Python, C#, a little bit of Java, a little bit of Ruby, but quite a few things in the past, but mainly I'm good in JavaScript. You guys will have your own answer depending on if you're familiar or not, but if you're not, my sincere advice is learn basics of test automation on your own. Maybe see some of our videos on our YouTube channel, just like this one, where you can learn basics of test automation or JavaScript. If you cannot take the course, watch YouTube, take a Udemy course for $12 and learn basics. And then whenever you go for an interview, at least you'll be able to say that, hey, I'm learning it, here's what I know right now. Boom, boom, boom. Even if you're going for a manual QA position, by the way, this guy did go for a manual QA position, and he did have a coding challenge during the interview process for the manual QA position. Third question, what do you include in a bug report? Also very simple, but it is what it is. Well, let's start with the number one, which is the most important part of the bug report, title, because title should answer 3 questions. What happened, where it happened, and under which circumstances. If you do answer those questions, your title will look excellent and people will not even have to look into actual bug report detail. But what do you include in the body? Well, preconditions or environment, everything that you do have to have before you can test the things, such as the account should be created, users should be created, blah, 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 blah. Then steps to reproduce, so people would be able to reproduce your issue, actual result, and expected result. And also aside of that, you can include post conditions, you can include attachments, which are very recommended for you guys to be included. Aside of that, every company will have a different types of configurations, and by the way, you can see quite a few things in your video that I have recently added on our YouTube channel right here, with all of the configurations such as QA assignee, sprint, priority, severity, and many more, maybe even a version of it. By the way, let me know guys, what are the most interesting fields that your company have configured to be used for the QA team? How do you approach regression testing? Well, regression testing is a partial testing of modified software to see if no new errors were introduced after the code changes. So, any code change was done, you gotta run regression, right? Well, how do you approach it? Well, depending on requirements. Usually you will have requirements or you will have scope. You will know that, hey, registration functionality was touched. That means that you have to test registration, you have to also test login functionality because it is related to the registration. And maybe some permissions depending on how the application is structured. So regression is the partial testing. You don't test everything in the world. You simply test everything around the change. So you would see if no new errors were introduced after the code changes. By the way, if you guys never did QA and you would like to try it on your own, I've created something completely almost free. For 20 bucks, you can study for an entire week and get an internship in a US-based startup with this guy right here. We start a new cohort every 2 weeks, so if you're interested, feel free to give it a shot and sign up by the following link right below this video. Let's continue. How do you get an element with Cypress? Well, Cypress is test automation framework in the world of JavaScript or Node.js. And whenever you use Cypress, there is a method, very simple and the most common method in the world for Cypress, which is sci.get. And then you specify your CSS selector. After that, you can do quite a few things in order to work with the selector, to verify, to assert it. You can do quite a few things, but you get it by simply saying sci.get. Also, if you want to get it by text, you can say sci contains such a text and it will find element that contains that text. But sci contains will find element by text, and if there are multiple occurrences of that text on a page, it will find one of them, maybe not the one you were looking for. So make sure to actually find the selector to get the only element you're looking for instead of utilizing the text. But sometimes it's also useful. The most behavioral question that I've heard so far. Have you ever had a problem with coworker and how did you solve it? This will show what kind of personal problems you could possibly have with coworkers in the future, as you already had them in the past. And you better not say anything that could show, even if you are a partially toxic person, you better not say that. The only problem that I had in my history with someone where a developer, it's a very classic one, where a developer would say, hey, it's not a bug, it's a feature. And how do you resolve the problem? Or how do you solve the problem? Well, very simple. You take the requirements, you read them, you double check them, you show them to software developer, and then person will understand it. If, for example, they'll say, what if the guy doesn't understand it? You simply say, well, I would double check the requirements, and if the person does not understand it, if the person sees the requirements that clearly specifies that, hey, it's a bug, not a feature, but it still says it's a feature, you would take it to your manager. You would simply escalate it and ask manager to resolve this problem. This is the most common problem and the most common solution for it. Now, you guys let me know in the comments below if you did have similar problems or actually some really interesting problems and how did you resolve them. Moving forward, my favorite, name a project that was difficult to work on and how did you work through it? Well, the most difficult challenge or project that I had was building a test infrastructure from scratch, where I never did anything related to DevOps in my life. I was simple QA engineer. I did some automation in the past. I played with Jenkins just a little bit on a baby level, but I never did work with AWS and anything like that. And I got a challenge from my manager. He said, hey, we gotta create test infrastructure no matter how. I was like, well, challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted.
It took me 3 months because I was on the side, I was also helping the team. I was a senior QA engineer. I acted pretty much as the lead. I was helping with the release process. I was helping all the junior and mid-level QA engineers, QA automation engineers to solve their problems. And also on the side, I was building test infrastructure. It took me 3 months. It took me quite a few attempts and the failures. And how did I approach it? It was very simple. I've planned it out. I've split it into tasks and I resolved them one by one. It was approximately 10 tasks that I had to resolve, and each task had probably 10 problems that I had to get through, so that's why it took me that long. But by the end of the day, instead of running 500 tests in 40 to 50 minutes, we were running 1,000 tests in 8 minutes. That was the record. Then the numbers went up. With the 1,300 tests, it went to 12 and 15 minutes, but still, that's quite an accomplishment, isn't it? And the last but not least, probably the most interesting and a weird question in my life. How do you test a vending machine? It's very simple, it's very logical, but I'm going to ask you guys to answer this question in the comments below. And I will tell you if it's right or wrong, because I've been asked this question about 5 to 10 times in my life. And I have learned that you have to start with a very, very simple thing, which is the base for every QA engineer in the world. And you guys now gotta tell me what it is.